Good morning, Idaho. Hope you're having a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're listening to this. Welcome to the Local Yokel Idaho podcast, where we talk about what is going on in the wonderful state of Idaho. This week, I'll be talking about tornadoes in Idaho. Yes, we have them. Plus news about the possibility of another Chick-Fil-A location in Boise and an interesting bike trail up north. So stay with me as we go through the morning banter and interesting events. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful week last week. I know it was hot this last Saturday. Oh my goodness. Too hot for comfort. It's not supposed to be that hot yet. I mean, Saturday and Friday, I was sitting there at work Friday and just being like, please no, because the place I work is at a shop and I haven't gotten the swamp cooler ready to go yet, and oh my word, was I wishing I had done it sooner. I know I'm going to be doing it this next week and getting that sucker ready to go because the heat has kind of arrived, but thankfully this week it's been a bit cooler. Looking at the weather report as I'm recording this Sunday, it looks like it's going to be super nice for the upcoming week and cool down a little bit, which praise the Lord. We don't need that yet. All I've been asking Idaho is just like, hey, I know you want to get hot. I know you're going to get hot. I know we're getting the hundreds and 90s, and you know that's the program for Idaho. But could you just please not do it in May? Like, is that so much to ask for? Could we do it just, maybe 80s, maybe, really low 90s, like barely half a degree into 90, right? Can we just limit it that in May? And then, in June and July and August and September, you can have all those to be super hot for all the crops and everything, but just leave May alone, please. I mean, I was at the homeschool graduation this Saturday, and it's the one time I get to dress up really nice and fancy and everything, and I got to do it and everything, but that type of clothing doesn't play nice with heat, and usually for the graduation ceremony every year that happens, it's usually cool or maybe a little bit of rain or something. But this year, 90 degrees, just no, too hot. I mean, for the rest of the state, you guys up north, you're probably loving it because you're like, cool, we got 60, we got 70. Yeah, it's warming up, spring's on the way for you guys and stuff's starting to melt a little bit and you're probably excited. But for us here in the valley in Idaho, it's just like, no. Stop, slow down. But I also have to admit, I'm a little bit happy with the heat. In a sense, I mean, I don't want it here in the valley. It's not time for it. But that means I'm going to be able to go hiking and go into more of those more mountainous areas that you guys have up there north because the snow will melt and I can actually get into there and it'll be a fun and enjoyable experience and I won't be freezing. So that's a plus. But on the flip side, while, kind of complaining about the weather and nature lately, why the smoke? It's May. How can you have fires? Like, how is that possible? It's so green. I can see the mountains here in the valley, and then everything else is so green. How can you why is there smoke? Smoke is supposed to be for like the end of the summer. Usually, we have our beautiful May, and then it heats up into June and July here in the valley. And then, August and September, then the smoke comes because everything's dried out, and then the fires start. Why are there fires now? How? I know there's still snow up there and it's cold. How are we having forest fires and smoke already? I mean, I went out and looked, and according to Bard or Google's AI thing that I used to kind of look real quick because I thought it would be a little bit more intuitive than going through the rigmarole of researching it through other avenues. But I looked at that and it was like, yeah, this has to do with fires over in Oregon and central Idaho. I'm like, Central Idaho, if I remember correctly, is like the Sawtooths. And right now, they are still covered crazy in snow. So that can't be right. And then I was reading a report, which we'll get into kind of precursor there in the Quickies over for Eastern Idaho, that apparently there's some fires up in Canada and stuff, which I guess that makes sense. But then that's even in more northern altitude. Or latitude, shall I say. Why are we having fires already? I thought we got a ton of rain and snow and everything should be wet. And how is it burnt? I don't know. I'm just complaining at this point, but there shouldn't be smoke in May in Idaho. It just doesn't seem right to me. I don't know if I'm just the only one here with that opinion, but it just no. But on the positive side of things, at least for here in the Treasure Valley, it cooled down for this week. And for you guys up in the mountains and everything, it was a bit warmer and you guys got to enjoy that and get out and the snow to melt. I've heard friends that I have that are more northernly that are like, yes, this is so nice. We get to go out. It's nice. It's comfortable. I don't have to wear a jacket, and they're loving it. and I can respect that. And thankfully here down the valley this week, it's going to be a bit cooler and we can enjoy the fruits of that so that I can get some yard work done while not, completely sweating everything I have in liquid form away. But enough of me complaining about the weather and everything and just kind of the weirdness of Idaho that is its nature at times. Let's get into the interesting events for the week and then the news. First off, we have Monday the 22nd of May, which is National Craft Distiller Day and Maritime Day. As for in history, in 1843, the first wagon train made up of between 700 and 1,000 immigrants left Missouri for Oregon. In 1939, Hitler and Mussolini signed the Pact of Steel. And lastly, in 1946, the U.S. rocket WAC, Corporal, reached the edge of space. As for in birthdays, Monday was Richard Wagner's and Arthur Conan Doyle's birthday. As for deaths, in 1802, Martha Washington died. In 1885, Victor Hugo died. And lastly, in 1967, Langston Hughes died. Tuesday the 23rd of May is National Taffy Day. A little bit of an excuse for something sweet there. As for in history, in 1785, Benjamin Franklin invented the bifocals. In 1949, the Federal Republic of Western Germany was created of the German, British, and French occupation zones. And lastly, in 1959, Mao Zedong's Great Leap Forward movement started in China. As for birthdays, Tuesday was Douglas Fairbanks and Betty Nuttall's birthday. As for deaths, in 1934, Bonnie Park and Clyde Barrow died. In 1937, John D. Rockefeller died. And lastly, in 1945, Heinrich Himmler died. Next up, we have Wednesday the 24th of May, which is National Brothers Day and National Scavenger Hunt Day. As for history, in 1844, Samuel Morse tapped out the world's first telegram message, quote, "What hath God wrought?" end quote. And lastly, in 1941, the German battleship Bismarck sunk the HMS Hood with 3 survivors and 1,416 killed. As for birthdays, Wednesday was Queen Victoria's birthday and is John C. Riley's 57th birthday. As for deaths, in 1879, William Garrison died. In 1959, John Dulles died. And lastly, in 1974, Duke Ellington died. Then we move to Thursday the 25th of May, which is National Tap Dance Day, something I've always wanted to kind of learn. As for in history, in 1945, Elbe Day happened with the U.S. and Soviet forces meeting at Tortuga. In 1954, Bell Labs announced the first solar battery made from silicon. And lastly, in 1990, the Hubble telescope was placed in orbit by the Discovery space shuttle. As for birthdays, Thursday was Ella Fitzgerald's birthday and is Al Pacino's 83rd birthday. As for deaths, in 1744, Anders Celsius died. And lastly, in 1995, Ginger Rogers died. Friday the 26th of May is National Paper Airplane Day and National Road Trip Day. As for history, in 1956, the first modern container ship, Ideal X Leaf, left Houston, Texas. In 1986, Reactor 4 at Chernobyl Nuclear Power Station in the USSR exploded, killing 31 and contaminating much of Western Europe with radioactive material. As for birthdays, Friday was Rudolf Hess's birthday and is Melania Trump's 53rd birthday. As for deaths, in 1865, John Wilkes Booth died, and in 1989, Lucia Ball died. Then we have Saturday the 27th of March, which is National Grape Day. As for history, in 1865, the steamboat SSS Sultana exploded on the Mississippi River, killing 1,800 of its 2,427 passengers. In 1945, Benito Mussolini was captured at Lake Como. And lastly, in 2005, the super jumbo jet Airbus A380 made its first flight from Tulsa to France. As for birthdays, Saturday was Samuel Morse's, Ulysses S. Grant's, and Sheila Scott's birthday. As for deaths, just one, in 1882, Ralph Emerson died. Then lastly, we come to Sunday the 28th of May, which is National Hamburger Day and National Brisket Day. Ooh, tasty, tasty, tasty. As for history, in 1770, James Cook aboard the Endeavour landed at Botany Bay in Australia. In 1910, the first night air fight was recorded in England. And in 1937, the first commercial flight by Pan Am crossed the Pacific. As for birthdays, Sunday was James Monroe's birthday. As for deaths, just two. In 1945, Benito Mussolini died, and in 1999, Arthur Shalhoub died. Now, moving into the news, we have our first story here, Idaho's Tornado Alley. This comes by the Boise Dev by Ann Daly. For those of us who live in Idaho, when we talk about the weather, we usually grumble about how it can't make up its mind, and when it does, it doesn't do what we want. And if someone talks about natural weather disasters in Idaho, we usually think of forest fires, heavy snow, or flooding, or something of the kind. But something you might not know is that Idaho gets about 3 tornadoes per year. The most recent one was in Adams County near Bear, Idaho in June of 2006. It was recorded as an EF2 tornado with winds ranging from 111 miles an hour to 135 miles an hour. Also, one hit the west end of Boise in March of 1984. It took out street sign lights and caused some damage to local businesses. With that said, the vast majority of tornadoes in Idaho are EF0, which is 65 to 85 miles per hour, and EF1, which are between 86 to 110 miles per hour. They also usually happen in unpopulated areas of the state, so thus they don't get a lot of coverage given to them. If you want to see one for yourself or just want to know where they most commonly occur in Idaho, Idaho's Tornado Alley is from the western Magic Valley area over by Hagerman and stretches out into the upper Snake Plain over by Idaho Falls. On the topic of this story and tornadoes in Idaho, I actually didn't know they were this common. I mean, I knew they happened in Idaho, and you'd read reports and stuff during the summer months or things that you'd see like a tornado or a small little thing off to like the south of the Boise airport or something, but I never knew they were like this common, that we had like 3 a year. I think if I remember in the article, I decided to scrub it for the script here, but in the article it said that like over the course there have been like about 300 recording ones in Idaho, but still crazy to me to think that in the state of Idaho we would have a tornado June of 2026, I think, or not 26, that hasn't happened yet, that's in the future, in 2006, that hit between 111 to 135 miles per hour. That's just crazy to me. But then on the other, I understand why it's not reported on a ton, because it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's, you know, where it doesn't hurt anyone. And so when a media, a news anchor person's looking for something to report on, they're just like, yeah, I could talk about that, but that really didn't affect anyone, and it wasn't sensational or anything. Yeah, it's really cool, but they have to kind of pick and choose their airtime for stuff. Granted, I feel like in Idaho, you can get away with that because in a weird way, not as much happens in Idaho, so you can talk about those weird or unique things, and they'll be interesting because in the background, the level of interesting things happening in Idaho is so much less, so it makes the things that would otherwise be not interesting, interesting. Maybe that's just me. I don't know, but that's kind of what I feel like sometimes that happens with the news, and it works out for me because I like to talk about some of the niche things myself and find those interesting, and hopefully you guys do as well. But I thought this was really interesting to share, and kind of the funny idea that Idaho kind of has a tornado alley, especially in a mountainous state as we are. You wouldn't think as Idaho having tornadoes. I mean, I think it was a couple weeks back, I went on a trip with my grandparents over to Wallowa, Oregon. Really cool trip. I would highly recommend to go over that way. Really nice. But we stopped in this one town. It may have been Wallowa, or it may have been one on the way there. And they had all these windows boarded up and everything. And everyone was getting their roofs redone. And we stopped in at the local library and we asked the gal about it there, the lady. And she told us that they had like a tornado. It didn't touch down, but it like went across because it was like a valley or whatever, kind of canyon valley type of thing. And that the tornado had come across the top of the valley, and it had just like torn up a bunch of windows and tore off a bunch of people's roofs, and they were just getting it all redone and fixed and stuff, which is another crazy thing I didn't think about, that like if you have a tornado or something that's like up in the air and it travels over something, kind of like a Hoover or a vacuum, that all that can kind of cause the damage and wreckage afterwards, even in a very, very mountainous area like it is over by Wallowa, that can actually occur. And I never thought of that. Usually when you think of tornadoes, you think of it needing to be very, very flat. You can't have these canyons and mountains and valleys for them to occur. But it's kind of crazy to think that that also can happen. Granted, as I'm talking about this, I don't know, maybe someone can comment out there that kind of popped in my brain. If that's the case, then I've always thought or heard that tornadoes are a unique thing to like the Americas or North America in general. I think that has something to do with like the Gulf Stream and all that and everything. But if you can have tornadoes here in like Idaho and kind of over in mountainous Oregon, what is stopping them from occurring over in Europe and stuff? Because you don't ever hear about that. I don't know, maybe they classify it differently than what we do over here, and that's what's kind of going on. I'm not sure. That would be a really interesting thing to look into. If someone knows the answer to it, please comment down below, and I'll bring it up next week on like the Quickies or in the morning banter or whatever, because that's a really, really interesting question, I think. Next one is on a topic that I think all of us as Idahoans love to grumble and groan about. But in this specific case, we're going to be focusing on Caldwell, roadwork, and traffic in Caldwell. This comes by the Boise Dev by Madriela Rodriguez. Hopefully I got that right. For many of us living here in Caldwell, we have seen how fast it is growing and how much traffic that has brought. It has brought so much that it has caused more than 8 road closures this year to repair and upgrade roads to deal with the load that's being put on them. The city is aware of the inconvenience this is causing and is working to keep people updated on the road work. Mr. Jackson, the public information officer for Caldwell, explained that the 8 road closures were due to deadlines approaching and funding coming in at the last moment, so he had to go for them all at once. In a press release, Mr. Jackson said that the city has the available funds for the road improvements for this next year's budget, but it will be interesting to see if Caldwell can keep up. The U.S. Census Bureau reported that Caldwell was one of the fastest growing cities and top places for population growth, with a population increase of 5.2% last year. Mr. Jackson touched on this by saying, quote, "This is an exciting time for the city of Caldwell with the rapid growth of both residential and commercial development, and the city thanks you for your patience," end quote. Which, as someone who lives here in Caldwell, I can kind of comment on this a little bit, but not a ton, because I will admit there are a lot of other fellow people I know here in Caldwell that will sit here and will probably grumble a lot more than I do about the road system, and I think they're fully warranted. For me, I know I'm a very easygoing guy, and I'm really forgiving, shall we say, and I just have known when I've talked to people or they're driving with me, they're like, yeah, I would have raged out. And they're like over in the passenger seat raging out for me at the traffic or the person that may have cut me off or whatever. And I'm completely cool. I'm completely fine. I'm just like, he needed to get in. I gave him some room, or man, that really wasn't smart, but I adapted and I moved or whatever. So, the traffic isn't a huge stickler point for me. The things that bugs me more is the traffic lights and their inefficiency of design, but that's a whole separate rant that I'm not going to get into at the moment. But with that said, I will admit, even with all that said, I have seen definitely in Caldwell, it is getting busier, especially Karcher. I think everyone here in the valley can attest that the Karcher road system is just utterly inefficient and a nightmare to traverse, shall we say. I know there's plans to expand it and get it bigger. Hopefully the length and scope they're going to do that with will be enough to keep up with the future demand and growth. But Caldwell in general is just growing like crazy, and it's way, way busier than I've ever remembered. I mean, I lived in Boise for about 15 years, but I kind of call Caldwell my second home, and now that I actually live here because my grandparents live here, and I've always come out into the Caldwell area and kind of known both of them kind of to an equal extent. But I feel like Caldwell's gotten way, way, way busier. And, this kind of gets to prove it with the U.S. Census Bureau and what they're talking about there. And then especially with the upgrade to the freeway that had to be done. For those of you that aren't in the Treasure Valley, for the longest time, you had the freeway that kind of works through here. I think it's I-80. I might have that wrong. I-82, something like that. My brain's blanking the exact number. But it comes through and it comes into Boise, and then Boise, I think it's 4 lanes. And then as you kind of get further out, about Meridian, maybe Nampa, about there, it cuts off to about like 3. There used to be a bottleneck, but they fixed that. And then it's 333, and then it used to stop right at like the last Nampa exit, right before the sugar beet factory, or maybe a little bit before that. And in the last couple of years, they've been working really hard to expand it. So they have 3 lanes all the way through all the Caldwell overpasses and exits, and even a little bit past the Caldwell. They haven't quite finished that one, but even past Caldwell towards the Middleton one, which I know for a lot of people that ride that a lot, like myself, the construction has been an inconvenience, but everyone's excited to have it finished. So there isn't that bottleneck in the 3 lanes, because a lot of times you'd have wrecks in the summer that would happen, and that 2-lane system would just get utterly clogged up, and it'd be so hard to get into town. And it'd be like, oh yeah, my usual 30 to 24 minute ride into town is now 45 minutes to an hour, maybe even plus that. So it's really glad to see that they're doing that, but also the construction is just crazy. Thankfully, with the construction in Caldwell, we don't have the same type of like road system that Nampa has. Nampa's is crazy downtown and just weirdly designed. I always joke that it was designed by a train engineer, not a road person. They looked at a rail yard and thought they could do that with roads, and it just doesn't work that way. Thankfully, Caldwell doesn't have that, but we do have the issue of that we're like at an angle, we're not straight on, and so you have a bunch of roads that have to come in and hook up to this angled bit of Caldwell Boulevard and different stuff. So that can be a little bit of a frustrating element of it, but we don't have to deal with quite as crazy. But as we're trying to expand, it's kind of interesting to see what city planners decide to do. I'm hoping they put more roundabouts in, because I love those a lot. They move traffic a lot faster, especially at 4-ways where I'm like, well, don't put a light in. It's not busy enough to need a light. But a 4-way is a really nice kind of in-between to put in there. And they're really pretty, I think, with kind of the center decorations you can put and the shrubs and hedges and different stuff. And it's a nice in-between between having like a 4-lane lighted type of road and having like a 4-way stop, that those can sometimes get really bogged up at rush hour. We have so many people and they're moving, but they're slowly moving. Rather than a 4-way, I feel like it can really move a lot more traffic. Next story is that teased about new Chick-fil-A location in Boise. This comes by the Boise Dev by Don Day. There may be a new Chick-fil-A location coming to the Boise area. There is a proposed location in pre-application phase, I will stress that, at the Boise Spectrum Development. If approved, it would replace the Johnny Casinos and El Tenampa restaurant that are currently there. For understandable reasons, it appears Chick-fil-A is trying to open a new location to help with how busy it gets. Both of the 4 locations in the Boise area get very, very busy. The hope is that the new one would take the strain off the others. Plus, the new proposed location would have a total of 1,149 feet of drive-through lane space and parking for up to 196 cars, which is crazy. I mean, I know I enjoy Chick-fil-A. I am very much a regular, and I have experienced this a ton. The Boise Chick-fil-A, especially the one over by the mall and the freeway there, it was not designed for what it was supposed to. Same with like the downtown Chick-fil-A. Both of those Chick-fil-A locations, I've seen way, way better ones designed for heavy, heavy, heavy loads in big cities, where Chick-fil-A was like, hey, they bought the land and they bought all the land they needed, and they had this, big lane. I think I remember being down in Colorado Springs, and there was a really nice Chick-fil-A. I mean, they had a huge lane. I think there was like a 2-laner that went in there, and then they also had like roofs over the top for all of them, kind of like the one that's in Nampa, that Chick-fil-A location. It was super nice, and they could handle a lot of load. But the ones in Boise aren't like that. I think the one that's there, if you have seen it, the one in near the Boise Mall, it's kind of like sandwiched in this really skinny part next to the freeway. And so like the drive-through lane is like into the parking lot and stuff. And I mean, it works, but when you're talking about how many people are in Boise and how popular Chick-fil-A has grown in recent years, it just does not do the job. So the idea of having this new location that's got 1,149 feet of drive-through lane space makes sense, and hopefully that'll kind of pull the strain off those, and people are like, hey, if I go to that one, it's usually really quick rather than the other locations, and that'll kind of help out the other ones in the valley. But there again, I will stress, it's in pre-application phase. It's not final. They're still really going through it. It's really, really early phases. Things might change. When I was reading the article, this area was also proposed to be used for like an apartment and some other stuff. So the city's still trying to figure out what it's going to do. And, even after it gets through this pre-application, it has to just get in the application phase and then get through the planning and zoning and a whole bunch of other stuff. So it'll be interesting to see if it moves forward, but Chick-fil-A definitely needs a more large location in the Boise area to kind of deal with the level of demand and popularity that they've gotten. Next story we have here is the University of Idaho buys the University of Phoenix. This comes by the Boise Dev by Autumn Robertsons. So Thursday, Idaho's State Board of Education approved U of I to purchase the University of Phoenix for $550 million. U of I claims it will bring $10 million in revenue annually to the Idaho Board of Regents. As for why U of I says it wants to purchase University of Phoenix, has to do with the fact that both institutions serve a significant number of first-generation students who would benefit from a larger support system, in their words. Related to the branding, Green said both institutions would continue to operate as they are. He said that they are not, quote, looking to turn the University of Phoenix into the University of Idaho. The deal should be signed and final by early 2024. As for my commentary on this, it's going to be rather limited, mainly because of the fact I'm not super into all like how this university and that stuff and BSU and NNU and all these different things and what that kind of means and different stuff. If you're someone who is part of U of I or the University of Phoenix, someone from Arizona that might be listening to this, I would really, really love to hear your guys' input on this, if you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, and I can talk about that here a little bit. But on the other hand, it is cool to see kind of an Idaho University, for me anyways, my initial take on it, to see an Idaho University that they had the money and capital to go and buy out another university and that they're getting larger and growing. For me, that looks encouraging. Also, coming back to kind of in the past, I've talked about I usually don't like the idea of companies getting bigger, buying stuff sometimes. That's when it comes to like more monopolistic stuff where it's like, cool, Amazon, you're big enough, let's calm down. Or when you see some outside player outside the state of Idaho trying to buy in some really local company, that makes me a little bit more concerned, shall we say. But the idea here, University of Idaho, from best of my knowledge, isn't super, super huge. And the idea of them buying the University of Phoenix, which will then give them better revenue and they can kind of grow and help more students in the Idaho area and in Phoenix, is really, really cool to see. Hopefully it's beneficial. When I was reading the article, I didn't want to go into the drama in there, and I'm not going to go into it in depth here, but apparently, U of I got slapped with some certain allegations and was sued and different stuff. So apparently, there's some concerns over them with legality's sake and stuff. I haven't looked into that at any depth. You're welcome to do that on your own time. So apparently there's just a little bit of doubt about their respectableness or responsibility, how they're going to handle things. I don't know. I go back and forth. I've heard people that have graduated from the University of Idaho that have enjoyed it. And then you've got CWI and all these other ones. So it'll be an interesting thing to see. I, for the most part, just tip my hat to them to say, great job. You guys are growing. Glad to see an Idaho company expanding and growing and achieving more. Hopefully they'll use it for good and it will be a beneficial thing to consumers and students in general. Coming to our last story here and our interesting and unique one. I try to save it for the last one here. Old rails turned into new bike trails. This comes by the show News Press by Josh McDonald. So I've heard about this and I've read about it a little bit, but after reading this article, I want to do it even more. Up in Mullen, Idaho, there is a unique bike trail, one like no other in the state. Back in the day, the Hiawatha route was one of the most scenic sections of railroad in the state. But with the decline of passenger rail in the U.S., it was closed down. Well, now all 15 miles of the rail line have been converted into a trail that you can bike. There is a Paul Pass tunnel that stretches for 1.9 miles beneath Bitterroot Mountain, and there is a trestle that is over 100 feet above the mountain floor. Plus, along the trail, there are signs that tell you about the history of the area and the rail line. For those that might not be big bikers, the trail is mostly downhill riding according to the owner, and there is an option for the shuttle bus to take you back up to the top with your bike when you finish. They are also excited to announce that this year, June 3rd, July 3rd, August 1st, and August 30th, people can go for a night ride on the trail and see the starry heavens while they ride. The only detractor or plus for some is that there's hardly any cell service on the trail at all. So if you want to get away from it all, it might be just the right thing for you. The route officially opens on May 26th and is open 7 days a week. But as I said earlier on, I had heard about this. I'd had some friends that had gone up there and traveled this bike trail and stuff and had glowing reviews. But after reading it and hearing about it and seeing some of the photos that are in the article, which I would recommend to go look at, it looks like a super, super fun time. And even if you're not a super big person into biking, I know I really enjoy biking. I've been out of it for a couple years since I moved out to Caldwell and stuff. I don't bike quite as much because, well, when you have roads, then have a skinny little like 4-inch, 5-inch bit. And then the speed limit is like 55 on that road. It's really not a smart idea to try to bike on that, and all that in the cars and stuff. So I haven't done it quite as much. But coming back to the story at hand, it looks super cool. Also, the idea of doing a night biking trail type of thing in the summertime sounds amazing. You're going through the woods, you're going through the forest, you got these beautiful views, and then the light pollution's probably really low, so you could like see the stars above you. They also, I think, are going to be offering some rentals for bikes. You can have a recumbent, which that's also really cool for those long distances. If you're a person who's not super into biking, it isn't in super fit shape for it, a recumbent is one of those bikes you can like sit down in and stuff, and it takes actually way less energy to ride. Usually they're a little iffy trying to ride in cities and stuff because you're lower to the ground, thus you're less visible. But for this idea, for this trail, that sounds amazing. I mean, if you're doing 15 miles in a recumbent, you're going to be so efficient. In a recumbent, you can easily hit an professional, shall we say, biker on average, if I remember correctly, can do almost like 23 miles an hour in a recumbent. So you could really go through that trail really quick, especially if it's downhill, and it wouldn't be a super tax on you. I know if I can, and if I'm up north, I intend to drop by this because this sounds really cool. I'll probably have to rent a bike because I don't have a truck at the moment to be able to throw my bike in the back and take it with me. Nor is my bike kitted out for, I have more of a city bike with the skinnier tires for more efficiency, but I guess I could steal one of the family's mountain bikes to go do it, but that's a different matter. But in any case, hopefully you found it interesting, and for you guys that are up there, probably a fun weekend thing, or even if you're just having a little bit of a vacation from the valley heading up, you could go do. That is the end of the full stories, but moving into the quickies, these are just stories that I didn't feel like needed a full banter, but were still relevant news that you might want to know about. We'll go through them really quick here. Our first one is new bakery coming to Boise. This comes by the Boise Dev by Donde. A new natural bakery is going in at 600 South 9th Street near the Boise Library in downtown Boise. The bakery is called Yeast and West Natural Bakery and is owned by Jonathan Diamond, one of the owners of Diamond Parking. The bakery will be a, quote, micro bakery and mercantile, end quote, and will offer a variety of breads, pastries, and other baked goods made with natural ingredients. The bakery will also have a small retail area where customers can purchase coffee, tea, and other items. The place is currently being remodeled to add a working room and a dining area with banquet seating according to the building permit application. Next story here is the cause of smoke in eastern Idaho. This comes by the East Idaho News by Renton Nelson. The smoke is back and too early in Idaho. Wildfires in Alberta, Canada are the cause of most of the smoke in eastern Idaho. As of the writing of this script, there are also air quality advisories in Clark, Fairmont, Lemhi, and Madison County, but they should be lifted about yesterday or today. This is because the wind is predicted to change directions and push the smoke out of eastern Idaho, so keep a lookout for that. McCall 4th of July alcohol ban. This comes by the Boise Dev by Autumn Robinsons. The city of McCall has made a code change to its 4th of July alcohol ban. The past resolution said that the city council may prohibit alcohol on designated parts during the 4th of July week, but there have been some changes to the wording in the code that makes it more strict. Quoting the updated code, quote, unless otherwise expanded or limited by a resolution of the McCall City Council, the provision and or consumption of alcohol beverages is prohibited in city parks adjacent to the Payette Lake, end quote. The code goes into effect on July 3rd at 8 p.m. and goes until July 5th at 8 a.m. There will also be signs posted around the city at least 24 hours before the restriction. As for those who break the code, it could be a misdemeanor and a fine of up to $300 and or 6 months in jail. This comes as the city of McCall put out a survey last year to feel out residents' opinion on keeping the ban. Out of the 316 respondents, almost 72% of people felt restrictions should remain in place. And then our last quickie here, Bear Creek Road partially collapsed. This comes by the East Idaho News by Mary Boyle. A portion of the Bear Creek Road in Swanson Valley is closed to all traffic due to damage caused from runoff from snowmelt. The road is expected to be closed for the foreseeable future. The Forest Service is working with the county to figure out what to do next with the area. The Forest Service is urging people to be cautious while in the area due to unstable conditions, end quote. That's all for now. Thank you for listening to the whole podcast. I hope you enjoyed it and it was valuable. If I missed something or got something wrong, or you have some advice for the show, then send me an email at localyokelidaho2022@gmail.com or tweet me at localyokelidaho on Twitter. This show is a one-man show, so I can't afford to go over everything, but I hope I was able to cover as many things as possible. Thank you for your help and support. That's all for now, and I hope you have an excellent rest of your week. Godspeed.